the newness of our team, the lack of experience of quality playing time for the majority of the players. Those two things would be a situation that we haven't experienced here since I've been here. Maybe, my first couple years, but those were not conference games on the road. So, yeah, combining those two, I think, does create that uncertainty without a doubt against a high-level team.
Tony, you guys are going to rely on freshmen more than you have in a long time. And defense, learning the defense has kind of always been the ticket to playing time. How are they doing with that?
I think, you're seeing, like all of our first years have been, a hardworking group. They're grasping it at times. The thing that comes over time defensively in any system is, we talk about it a lot, is just less thinking, more anticipation, being more continuous. Those are two really important words in any quality defense, that they can anticipate things. And again, they play through stuff. When either you don't have the reps or you're a little uncertain, you either react more or hesitate. And I don't know, not much defense is reaction nowadays. That's why I think Syracuse zone has been good. When we've been at our best defensively, it's the ability to read things quickly and be that kind of anticipatory team. But that will those things are coming, and they're certainly working their hardest at it, and they will. Some of those guys will get opportunities.
Yeah. Hey, Tony, is there a way, and if so, how so, to kind of replace or fill the void of the intangibles, leadership that you lose when Ty and Kyle and those guys aren't with the program?
Yeah, I think you rely on, we have two guys that played significant minutes. Kihei, who's, really only a second year. Sometimes I look at him like he's our grizzled veteran. And Mamadi, I can't remember how many minutes Mamadi played. And then after that, there was Braxton. And then Jay was, those are our four biggest veterans or returners. So I think you rely on the guys that have the experience. And then it's just through opportunities getting thrown in the fire, so to speak, where you'll learn and you'll grow as it happens. But, of course, I've said it so many times, no substitute for experience, and those intangibles are built over time, and guys are getting opportunities to forge those, in the midst of an opening game and a lot coming at us with an experience. Our practices have looked a little different this year at times, a little more teaching, but I think it's a team that has shown improvement, from where we started to now, and I think there's a lot more improvement there.
Along those lines, when we last saw you, I think it was October 4th in Charlotte, so that's nearly a month. What have you learned in the interim through practice and scrimmages about your team?
I think, again, you see the inexperience in the youth at times, and then you see, I think I've told you back then, we're a big team. So we have to, there's certain things that we do have. We have more of a experience in our front court and size. The only returning experience in the back court is Kihei. So that's, we have that, and the rest is a little uncertain. But the longer the guys like, Cody Statman are playing and getting out there in practices and in scrimmages, and Thomas, and, we're using Braxton some, and of course Casey, those are predominantly the perimeter guys. They're getting, I think, more comfortable in a practice and a scrimmage setting. Now you move the needle to a live setting, we'll find out. But I think our experience, as we saw, our size can be effective, and we're relying on that. A lot of times those forwards, we're trying to get them different kinds of opportunities. It's a little different. Last year we were a little heavier. We relied on the perimeter. This year at times we're giving, the Jays and Mamadis opportunities that weren't as prevalent last year, but we're going to need more, I guess, production from them as the season goes. And then I think the younger guys will get a feel for where they can be aggressive and where they can't.
Hey, Tony, you mentioned Mamadi. Last year he played really well in the NCAA tournament. He said at Charlotte that going through the draft process has been very beneficial for him. What have you seen in him from the end of last season to right now in terms of progress and improvement and his willingness to want to get better?
Yeah, no, he's really improved. He's worked very hard. I think he's, he's improved really all areas of his game. I think his shot is better. He's scoring better. He's a bit more continuous. He's always been athletic and can protect the rim. But he's, I think he understands that there'll be some more opportunities for him and trying to lead better. So I just seen, this is his last year, and I think all the experiences that he's had from having to be patient early on, having to be, a big part of certain games and conference games, NCAA tournament games, and then going through the experience in the spring, summer of the draft process, all that has improved him. And again, he'll face things this year as a player for UVA that he has not faced in the past, being more of a marked man and, at times getting more opportunities to score within the system or within, where his strengths are. But I'm excited for him. I think he's worked hard, and he's always full of life and energy, and I know he wants to lead this team to the best of his abilities.
Tony, I know you'd like to have him on the floor this year, but how much of an impact can Sam Hauser have just in practice, a player of that caliber every day?
Yeah, no, he's real competitive, and he wants, whenever his team is out there, he wants to win. I can remember a few years ago when Anthony Gill and Malcolm Brogdon were our redshirt guys because Anthony transferred, Malcolm was injured, and I remember how good practice was and how hard it was at times to, either be successful against the second unit or the green group, we call them. And you see that at Sam. He brings that, and he's very competitive, and his experience being obviously 4 years now, going on 4 years in college, it helps. And it makes you get excited about him for the future, of course. And then, hopefully he'll really work hard, develop his game, and do what guys have done in the past in that situation. Do whatever he can to serve the team, make him better, and improve his game in the process. And he's actually leading too, which I like. He's talking to guys, he's seeing things, and he's definitely getting more comfortable.
We've heard so many times about, with the ACC opener, how much pressure that puts or changes things. Nobody's really articulated what actually changes. So could you go into a little of, are you doing things differently because of what that first game is and the magnitude? Do you change things in practice? Do you change your timeline, your installation? What does it mean that things are different?
Yeah, I mean, we're practicing against the zone. I think we're doing that a lot, so that's it's just, I think, starting on the road, a conference game, there's 20 now. I guess that's it as far as the difference is. You're preparing for a really good opponent. Sometimes we've started on the road before with teams, but not in a conference game. So the newness of that, and I think, as I mentioned, the newness of our team. All those two combined provide for a lot of uncertainty. But I don't think the way you're preparing. You still have things you have to get done, and it's not like you're preparing for one game and then you're playing. It's a tough setting, and we're starting on the road against a good team that plays a unique style. And, it's just you don't get a lot of that when you scrimmage other teams. Not many people play similar to how Syracuse does, so you try to emulate it to the best of your abilities in practice.
How has your thinking about redshirting evolved over the years, and how is last year's developments along those lines? How do you think about that now?
Yeah, I think it's been pretty consistent. It always starts out with it's the player's decision and his family or those who help counsel him. As coaches, I always do the best I can to say this is what I think might be best for you, for the team. Look at it from that standpoint and make suggestions. But that's too important. That's a player's career. And sometimes in the recruiting process, might hurt, it might not. If I think that could be on the table, that'll be brought up so that when the time comes and it's discussed, it's not a surprise unless there was an injury or something unforeseen happened. We didn't expect for DeAndre, for example, to redshirt. That wasn't talked about, and then he had an ankle sprain, and we just thought this might be the best thing heading into it, and that was a hard one, but I think it worked out pretty well for him last I checked. So, yeah, I don't think much has changed. You have to redshirt transfers, so that's your hand is dealt. And then we've done it with Mamadi, with Jay. We've talked about it with Caden. That hasn't been finalized yet, but that was something even in the recruiting process because he has a big upside, and it's those decisions you think about. What's best for the team? But first and foremost, it's his decision. It's his family's decision. What's best for the young man? And then you say, all right, how does this work out? I always try to think long-term with them. Jason Williford has got the greatest story. He said, I played how many minutes? He always says, 39. You guys were 36 minutes his whole first year. And he talks about that a lot. Man, what I would have been, at the end for that extra year than the first year. And so he's got good insight on it.
Tony, a lot of your fans are excited about your freshman class and your newcomers. Could you give us a small breakdown of each guy and what you like about them?
Yeah, well, we just mentioned Caden. I think he's rangy, he's mobile, shot blocker, pretty good motor on himself. He's just got to get stronger. But I think it's 7'5" or 7'4" wingspan. So he's one of the longest wingspan guys, and those guys are so active. And I think he's just, like I've talked about with some of our other guys, but true, he's just scratching the surface. And we'll make a final decision on him. Justin Mccoy, who was a late signee in the spring, real good motor, continuous. He's physical. He's aggressive. He just plays really hard and works. 6'7", fairly long arms, and he's had some real good stretches. Not afraid of again. He's got an aggressive nature and not afraid of contact. And then Casey Morcell. Casey obviously was highly touted, and he signed early. And I think he can be a good two-way player. He can guard the ball, and he's learning our system defensively, and good body. And he's, again, not afraid to step up, take shots, does some things nicely. And you can see there's still some progress there, but he's going to be good. I like that assertiveness of those guys, and they're going to have to be that way when you play if you're going to get opportunities in your first year. Thomas, being obviously a junior college player overseas, has got very good feel for the game. He was injured for a while with his wrist. He's healthy. At times he shows just beautiful feel, and he has the ability to make some threes. But still, like the new guys, even is adjusting to the defensive and philosophy in that system. But glad he's here, and again, he brings some depth in the backcourt, which we need. I can talk about, Poppy right now. Poppy actually is recovering from a deep knee in the thigh, and he had to have a procedure to kind of relieve some things. So we're just kind of waiting to see how long it'll be before he can be back practicing. He was practicing well. I've told you before, a little bit like Jack Salt in terms of his physicality. Loves contact, very physical and new to the game. But I think in time, we'll be there. And once he's able to go, I think his physicality will be useful. An unorthodox game, but effective at times. Cody didn't play a whole lot. I feel like I can keep going on about our new guys. Chase Coleman, who is a walk-on for us and has done a nice job in practice and in our scrimmages. And he's very quick. I watch he and Kihei in practice. They're so quick the way they challenge each other. But I've thrown him in there in opportunities and scrimmages to shorten experience, and he's done a nice job. And help me out here. Who else? Bach, any other new guys besides? Okay. Obviously the guys didn't play much, but it's a lot. It's a little different that we're counting on. So.
Tony, Jay seemed last year to be like a high-energy guy when he came in the game with a flair for kind of dramatic, big dunks and block shots and stuff. Do you need him to temper that a little bit so he can, not draw crazy fouls because of just so much energy and, to be more consistent and available?
You said Jay, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think Jay worked hard. He lifted hard. He committed in the offseason to improving. He had a full year, played a couple times or a few times in the Kenner League, so that was really good for him. But, yeah, I just need his size, his length, his ability to stretch the floor, score inside. Jay's a skilled offensive player. He's continuing to improve defensively and get more assertive. We're going to need his offensive abilities this year. And as I said, that's at times with he and Mamadi on the floor, which we'll definitely do. And Braxton, the three of them on the floor, you got some good size. So absolutely, guys, I don't know what Jay averaged minute-wise, but consistency. Now he's an upperclassman, a redshirt upperclassman. He's going to get some really good opportunities, and I think we'll need that from him. And then he's shown flashes at times in practice, as he did in last year's games. But I think opportunities to play and all that, I hope will help. And I'm encouraged by what I see. And like I said, with all of our guys, you see flashes. And can we do it now when as the season gets going and we're in competition?
Coach, last year, coming off of the way the previous season ended, United Pursuit was your frame from the beginning, and you guys really worked hard in the offseason, the preseason, to prepare for everything that was coming your way. What's the frame for this season for you as you look at this group, at what's ahead for you guys? How are you framing it to the kids, and how have they responded to that?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have an exact theme. I didn't have one last year, but a lot doesn't change. I mean, we know how. I think everyone's going to have to be ready, but we're focused a little more on the things that we think are going to give us chances to be competitive to start and as sound and tough-minded as we can be. And again, that's a process. But I think it's trying to get everyone on the same page and understand the execution and the tenacity that's required to be a quality team. And again, capitalizing on our strengths, some of our size, some of our rebounding. My hope is we can be a sound defensive team, and then figure out ways to score with balance, inside, outside. That'll be the key this year. And again, until you see guys in game settings, I think we won't know for sure. But I think just everybody trying to push hard and not being too consumed with what happened last year or what's expected this year. We're at just, can we max out and be ready to go? It's kind of that simple.
Tony, you said with a kind of a wry smile at Operation Basketball that your team thinks it's a good three-point shooting team, but that perhaps you weren't quite sold yet. Have you figured it out yet? And especially in light of the extended arc this season.
Yeah, I mean, time will tell with that one. I mean, we're not where we've been shooting the three-point shot, but Jay and Momedy can shoot the three. And I think opportunistically, certainly, Cody and Casey, Kihei takes him opportunistically. Thomas can shoot it. So there's guys that can shoot it, and we always laugh, can shoot it, can you make it? There's a big difference. Again, in practices, there have been stretches, but we're not at that level. But when you have open shots, you got to take them, and you'll get tested right away. You're going to have to, stick some outside shots against that zone. Of course, work the areas that are important. But we're working at it hard, and I hope it's improved a little bit since Operation Basketball, and when you ask me a month from now, I hope I'll say it's even better yet. So that's a work in progress, but that'll be important. We've been spoiled for a lot of years to have excellent three-point shooting, and it'll be a little bit more balanced this year, but we'll have to take them when they're there.
Coach, Braxton's a guy that kind of flies under the radar sometimes. Yep. He's going to be a huge piece on both ends of the ball. Where have you seen improvements from him coming off of last year and then working this summer? Yeah,
I think Braxton, he'll play some at the forward spot, some at the perimeter, the three spot. He'll just have to be used as both. I think he's worked hard. He's improved. When you get to his age, that sometimes they're not huge jumps; they're just little areas. At times he's been finishing better. He's trying to lead better, and his experience shows. He's, as I said, he's kind of like the Swiss Army knife. He can do a lot of things well. I think one of his greatest strengths, no matter where he's playing, is he can get on the glass. I mean, he showed that in different games, offensive rebounds to give us chances, defensive rebounds, but then use his feel. And I just challenge him, just keep being sound, because he has some natural instincts that help defensively for us as a young team, and then offensively. So I think he's moved it up, and I think his physicality is important. When you play him at the three, he's a 6'7", 6'8" guy, and then at the four, he's defensively on the glass and mobile. Those things can help us. So he'll have ample opportunities.
Hey, Coach. In light of so many young players and newcomers, are you likely to hold more closed scrimmages leading up to that first game to try to give them more game experience or the feel of game experience? Well,
you're only allowed 2 scrimmages against other teams. That's what the NCAA allows. You have 2, and we did those, and then after that, you can't. You could either play 2 exhibition games that are open to the public or 1-and-1, but the scrimmages are closed unless it's for some kind of a hurricane relief or charity thing. So we've done those, and then it's just a matter of, and then it's your practices. Of course, in practice, you do situations, and you'll go up and down, but you only get 2 if I'm understanding the question correctly. And that's why those are valuable, because you can shape them however you want. You can add an extra quarter, play guys that didn't get to play as much, you put them in situations, and you're really working. You can stop. So those have been valuable for us. We've done that, I think, all but maybe our first year. We played 1 exhibition and 1 scrimmage, and after that, I think it's always been 2 scrimmages against different teams.
Coach, obviously, transition defense is a staple of your program, yes, but there have been certain years, like the Gil Toby year, for example, where you've wanted your guys to get rugged on the glass.
Yeah.
Is Could this be one of those situations with obviously Jay and Mamadi being your experienced players?
I think it's got to be both at a high level for us to be as good as we can be, without a doubt. We always are aggressive, and that when we're playing our best, we always want, and that's where challenge guys to get, especially our bigger guys, to get all over the offensive glass. You know, it depends how many we send to the glass, how many we send back, but we'll have to be fine. Those are extra possessions. I think it'll be really important for our team, and then we're going to have to, if we're going to be any good, I told our guys, you better get an A- in transition defense every time out. And our scrimmages have revealed we weren't great in that area at times. And so we know the things that are going to keep us where we need to be, but both of those are extremely crucial. The defensive rebounding, of course, but for sure with your length, I hope we can keep some more balls alive. But that's offensive rebounding is about anticipation and your heart to go after it. And you get maybe 20 to 30% of them, but you got to go every time, because if you don't go every time, you're going to get 10% of them, and so that's going to be huge for us.
Obviously, you've recruited some players who've done very well for you. What has the reception been like over the last couple months, looking forward for recruits?
Recruiting-wise, yeah, I think when, you know, our program has obviously done some good things over the years. As I've said, when you can show young men, first, you're going to have a chance to come to a world-class academic institution, and then you can show them there's a chance to be very successful as a team. And obviously this year was the prime example of that. But over the years with some of the ACC championships and advancing in the tournament, and then this year, and then ultimately when your players are having success playing on, you know, international teams over in Europe, in the NBA, Joe playing on the USA team. Those are three nice components that I think, what else is there? You know, I mean, of course, it's about the quality of the people, the relationships, but great academics, opportunity to win, develop your game, play professionally. That to me is what I would want to look at if I were a young man, and I'd look at that closely. And I think the development, and I think those. I think that's been building over the years, and it's continuing to go in that direction. As you know, some of the recruits we've gotten and those we're involved with. So it certainly has only been enhanced when three guys, you know, winning a championship and two guys getting drafted in the first round, and the success of those guys, then Kyle getting drafted. All that stuff is real positive. Players watch, the student athletes, the guys you're recruiting, they watch all that and they know.
Yeah, Tony, with regard to Casey, what kind of difference does it make, if any, of him having played in arguably the most competitive high school basketball league in the country, but still going to the ACC where you have NBA players up and down so many rosters? Does that even make a difference?
No, it's there's no question the league, you know, that league that Casey has played in St. John's, the Catholic League, is unbelievable. And I think when guys play in those settings, that most players from that league have gone on and done pretty darn well early on. Because there's nothing like that. And there's some other good leagues, but to be battle-tested against that competition in the hostile environments, I think that's a plus. And AAU ball, some of these AAU venues and events are very intense, so I think that prepares these guys to step in a little more used to it. You know, I remember last year in our blue-white scrimmage, I asked Cody, what do you think? He's like, so this is like the most, I think he said, I don't know if I can feel my legs right now. You know, he said that because I think he had played in front of a couple hundred people or a few hundred, whatever the number was. And he didn't have that experience of being an international player, and some guys don't have that at high school. But when you play in front of a packed house, and St. John's is playing DeMatha, or you're going to Gonzaga Prep, or all those schools, those are wars. And so I think that's really good, along with some of the ACC battles, the AAU battles that are televised on ESPN. All those are experiences and situations that I think you can lean on as a player when you step into the college. But there is an adjustment still, no matter how much experience you have.